Really get to know people. And then you meet, I mean, if we're really honest, you probably meet 2-3 people a year that kind of blow you away. But you're like, wow, that's just a cool person. So I had the pleasure of meeting Mycal, our next speaker, I guess a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of those people that, like, if I didn't have to think about it right there, I said I've known him for 10 years. Pretty exactly on. So I'm not going to tell you your story, but I will tell you, you're definitely one of my most favorite people on campus. I'm honored to have him. Mycal, come on.
Appreciate you. Thank you. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Awesome. So, as cool as I am, I'm also old school. So for those of you that have your tech out, your computers, your phones, all that kind of good stuff, all I ask is for the next 45 or so minutes, we're all present in this room together. So take all of that shit and put it away. If it's out on the desk, get rid of it. Computers down, out of the way. Phones down, out of the way. I'm both honored and humbled to be standing here in front of you today. Steve, I appreciate the opportunity because it's because of people like you that a moron like me got his shit together financially, right? I was just really good at what I did in the fitness business. Took that for a long ride, and I've been really blessed over the course of my 20 years in the game with client longevity. And like you guys, I've had the pleasure and honor of working with some really cool people. And I'm just honored to be a part of this team and to hopefully impact you guys in the same way that you guys have impacted me since we've been working together. So Steve, I really appreciate you putting this fine group of folks together for me. So I want to give you guys a round of applause for everything that you bring to the table in helping people like me realize their dreams by getting their act together financially. So thank you guys. I want to lead off with some stats. 4%, the percentage of Boy Scouts that earn the rank of Eagle. 6%, the percentage of high school athletes that go on to play in the NCAA. 0.8%, the percentage of Americans that become Marines. 2.3 of which are minorities that commission to lead as officers of Marines. 20%, the percentage of businesses that make it past the first 5 years, let alone the 4% that make it the next 5. 10%, the percentage of podcasts that make it past the first 10 episodes, and the 1% that actually break the 1%, the 1 million download threshold. I've achieved all of these things, not because I was the biggest, the fastest, or strongest, or the smartest. That is 100% untrue. I'm the effort guy. And what I do is I help leaders lead better within their integrity by first optimizing their health and making themselves a priority again. As you guys are helping individuals build their empires, what good is it if you leave yourself behind in the process? I've got a client that I've been working with right now for, the past 8 or so months. He's cracked the code. He knows how to print money, business systems, investments, all that good stuff. He's got that part figured out. He's got a team of you guys behind him helping his money make more money. And now that he's in his latest venture, I'm like, what's the goal here? Why aren't you like just sitting on the beach, enjoying your margaritas, sailing off into the sunset? He said, I want to build this one to give to my kids. And I just asked him the very hard question as he has one foot in the grave and the other on the banana peel. Like, you do understand the difference between handing a business down and them inheriting it. because you weren't around to give it to them. That's the impact that I have. And maybe some of you can relate to that narrative. And what I want to share with you today are the 4 tenets of success that if you put them to work, they'll keep your foot out of the grave, keep that other one off the banana peel, and allow you to exponentially increase your capacity for the impact that you have. Who am I to do this work? Who am I to stand before you today? Is it because I'm a Marine? No. Is it because I was an NCAA athlete? Absolutely not. I'm the most mechanical guy ever. You know, if you want to talk about talent, you got to go talk to my brother who's in town right now getting ready for his next UFC fight, who won a championship on Saban's first team at Alabama. That dude, 6'2", 220 pounds, 4.4 speed, 300-pound clean, coming out of high school. I was not that guy. Is it because I went to school and got a bunch of degrees and I've got, a ton of initials behind my name? No. Is it because I launched that 1 million download podcast? No. Is it because of the best-selling book that I wrote? Mm-mm. Is it because at one point I had the #1 CrossFit gym in America? No. It's because I've walked this path and I'm still running out of ways to fuck things up. I'm the effort guy, and you all know that person. First to every drill, early to practice, stays late, gets up earlier than everyone else. In the Malcolm Gladwell sense of the word, mastery, if it takes 10,000 hours, I need 10,001. I'm the effort guy. And along my journey in fitness, I realized, because I had a lot of client mentors along the way who recognized the potential in me and offered their guidance and experience to help me elevate my practice. There was a common thread along the way. And when Steve asked me to come present to you guys today, I'm like, do you want like a presentation on like what I coach and what I teach? He's like, no, they've got enough of that. I just want you to tell your story. But there has to be a lesson behind that story. So I'm going to give you these tenets in advance. And through the telling of my story, you're going to see how they apply. In the path to progress always. There's only 4 principles. Number 1, keep your promises. How you do that is number 2. Honor your commitments, whether that's behavioral change, making that impact, keeping your word, doing what you say you're going to do. And in honoring your commitment, life is going to ask and require of you to do number 3. Do the hard thing. Before I caught up with Steve, I wasn't awesome with money. There's so much of what you guys do in the financial world that is directly applicable to what we do in the fitness world, it's crazy. But where we miss the boat as humans is that transfer of training and understanding that if I can just connecting the dots, this that applies over here, that principle of compounding interest, those small daily decisions that in the moment are incredibly challenging. In my world, that's staying away from the cake. That's getting up early and going and getting your workout in. In your world, it's investing that 5-10%. It's saving that 5-10%. It's spending below your means. All things in your world, those are very simple things. But to a lot of your clients, they're the hardest thing. But if you want to reinforce that behavior, if you can get to number 3, number 4 takes care of itself. Make yourself proud. That's it. Keep your promises. Honor your commitment. Do the hard thing. And number 4 takes care of itself. Reinforces the rest. Gives you the courage, the bravery, the integrity to lather, rinse, and repeat 1, 2, and 3 over and over and over again, regardless of the context. Where did that come from, though? I can remember, being 18 years old, newly recruited to the Air Force Academy to play football, and sitting in the auditorium. Unlike most college athletic experience, you don't get to just show up and play the game. There's other things that come with it. And I remember sitting in the auditorium with my fellow cadets and Colonel Ferris standing up there and telling us, look to your left, look to your right. One of you isn't making it to graduation. Now what you have to understand about my situation is both my parents were officers in the Air Force. My dad was a Mustang, retired captain, private practice criminal defense attorney. My mom was a full bird colonel, retired after 26 years of honorable service. I thought I had the game figured out, so I looked to my left and I looked to my right and I said, sucks for one of you. But if you're paying attention to the thread, I was not an officer in the Air Force. I was an officer of Marines. People try to figure out how do you do that? I didn't graduate from the academy. I didn't cross commission. I took the long way. When my dad asked me a question at 16 years old, he said, son, what do you want to do with your life? I told him 3 things. I want to play college ball, I want to graduate with a degree, and I want to be an officer. That was a promise I made to myself. Fast forward 2 years, I had to go to Air Force Academy prep. Like I said, I'm the effort guy. That's where the effort guys go. I wasn't the biggest, I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the strongest, I wasn't the smartest. They say, hey dude, you gotta get better at all that stuff. Your SAT needs to come up, your 40 needs to come down, you need to put on some weight, you need to get a little bit stronger. Okay, sounds good. Off we go. Freshman year at the academy, making great progress on the field, but I got lazy in the classroom. I'm in computer science. Any of you that are familiar with the Berkman assessment, analytics is not my strong suit. Again, I'm old school. No phones, no computers. I'm using markers. No PowerPoints. Tech is not my jam. And I'm in this computer science class. I get behind on the books, And I call a friend. I'm like, hey dude, this thing's due in a couple hours. Let me get the code. And that 10-point quiz cost me graduating from a service academy and a career in the United States Air Force. I'll never forget, I was on the top of a rock in combat survival training. The whole point of going to the prep school was to put on weight and get stronger. And then they put us in the woods for 18 days on MREs and marching for miles. And I'm down the 20 that I had gained. And they're like, hey, appreciate your effort. We don't need you anymore. We're sending you home. I remember calling my dad. My mom picks up the phone. I was like, hey, they're sending me home. She's like, okay, let me get your dad on the phone. Get on the phone with my pop and just break down. And where I thought I was going to get the I'm so disappointed in you finger wagging speech, he was just dad. He said, hey, take the lesson, lick your wounds, come home, we'll get it figured out. That was helping me get out of my chaos. What I didn't realize is when I touched home, it's like, hey, this ain't no free ride. Figure it out, get the fuck out of my house. So with that directive, I took a partial scholarship, sight unseen, to Texas A&M at Commerce, also known as East Texas State. I'm not an Aggie, I'm a Lion. I would go on to finish my degree in health and human performance at a small D2 school that has more cows than people out in the middle of nowhere, East Texas. Upon graduation, actually, let me back up. I remember my dad coming to visit me at Commerce in my disheveled apartment, and he sits down on my couch and like 6 roaches run out from underneath it. And he's like, son, this is so good for you. I'm like, how could this possibly be a good thing? And with the most confidence in the world, he tells me, he's like, you will never allow yourself to be this poor ever again. But I had to one-up him. I got out of school, my sister was living in Dallas, and I was shopping gyms trying to figure out where I was gonna grow my practice as a personal trainer and a strength coach. I was at 24 Hour long enough to get a paycheck. I was at LA Fitness long enough to get a paycheck. And my sister is a high school history and English teacher. And she's like, you can come crash on my couch. Well, if you know anything about the fitness industry, I'm working when you're not. First thing in the morning, between 9 and 4, things die down, and then we're back on the job when most people are eating dinner. My sister's not hip to that game. So anytime she saw me, I'm at home napping on her couch. She's like, you gotta get up out of here. Go get a real job. And with that, I lived out of my truck for a little while, trying to get it figured out. I ended up at Gold's Gym, got a solid book of business going, and because of my efforts, they're like, hey, we're opening a new location, you need to go do that. We'd love to have you up there. So I go. And a buddy of mine who had played soccer at Central Arkansas, he's like, hey, my alma mater's in town playing Southern Methodist. Let's go check it out. It's like, yeah, for sure. We go, and I didn't realize that since I had left the academy, I'd never stood for the national anthem. All of that pomp and circumstance pregame stuff was done while we were in the locker room at Commerce. So we're standing there, we're sitting in the stands, BSing or whatever, and the game's getting ready to start, and they're like, please rise for the playing of the national anthem. And the military brat that I am, the fallen angel, as we call those that didn't make it through the academy experience, snapped to attention. And in that moment, I realized I hadn't done this. I hadn't kept my promise. I wasn't honoring my commitment. Stayed through the game. The very next morning on company time, I'm like, who's taking officers right now? And I applied with the Air Force, the Marine Corps, and the Army. Couldn't touch the Navy. Sorry if there's any of you squids in the room. Love the corpsmen though. And in typical Marine Corps fashion, the Marines were the first ones to call me in. Captain Jesse Pletz, an artillery officer, was my recruiter. And I walk in, and he's like, sorry, dude, we don't have any spots for you. This is right before Halloween 2007. We don't have any spots for you until June. I was like, dude, I need to get this ball rolling ASAP. I'm ready to, this chapter either needs to end or I'm just leaving Dallas. I'm heading back east. He's like, well, it's like a 6 to 18 month process for anybody, let alone, whether we have slots or not. I was like, okay, great. What he didn't know is that by virtue of going to the academy, I already had a security clearance. I already had all my medical. I already had all my paperwork. So it gives me the list of 1 million boxes to check. I go home and I have this file folder this thick of just stuff. And I walk in his office, and I drop it on his desk, and I say, tell me what boxes needed, what's left. Now you also have to understand the timing is everything. We're fighting 2 wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. The Marine Corps is plussing up. We're in an initiative at that point going from 185,000 Marines strong to 202,000 Marines strong. And not everybody makes the cut for this officer candidate thing. So in a month, a couple of things lined up. My package was submitted. A pilot slot dropped out. And I was waiting on the word. But I'm starting to live into this and I don't even know it. I said I was leaving at the holidays. Thanksgiving comes and goes, still no word. I'm like, hey, sir, I appreciate the effort. I gotta go. My mom's living in Nashville at the time. And I just decide, I'm gonna go back to my hometown, Waldorf, Maryland. Home base is on the way. I get to Nashville. The day after Christmas, Captain Pletz calls me. And he says, you haven't unpacked, have you? It's like, no, sir. He's like, good. You check in on January 18th. I had to pull some strings. Don't fuck this up. You better show up. Like, roger that, sir. Hey, Dad, I'm making good. Mom, I'm going to be okay. January 18th, Quantico, Virginia. In between, my brother's playing in the Independence Bowl in Shreveport, Louisiana. New Year's Eve, Oklahoma State. Play the game, head to the casino, gamble a little bit, come back to the room. And I can remember falling asleep on the couch, my dad next to me in the armchair, fall asleep. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I stir in a dream and I kick his hand. He wakes up, makes his way into the bedroom, but the last thing he says to me is, "I love you, son. Love you too, Dad." It's the last thing I got to say to him. He didn't wake up. He passed away that evening. So we fly him up to Omaha. Military honors. Have his funeral. Learned a lot of things about my dad over the course of that weekend that stories I'd never heard before. A lot of cool shit. A lot of crazy stuff. But I'll never forget sitting at home with my mom and just listening to her cry her eyes out every night because she lost her best friend. And I told her, I don't have to go. I can stay. But I didn't know she's living into this. And she's like, you need to go finish that. And she gave me the permission, the go-ahead, to keep it moving to Quantico. Now, I get there, and I'm standing at the gate. I'm sitting at the gate in my car. We're in ThreatCon Delta. Red flags are up all over the place. Gate guards fully armed, locked, cocked, and ready to rock. And I'm sitting there at the gate, looking like I'm about to storm the base, orders in hand, nervous as shit. And I call a buddy of mine who's about 6 months ahead of me in the officer pipeline. I said, hey, Billy, don't bullshit me, man. Is it worth it? And he's like, look, dude, I'm so new to this game right now. If I'm being honest with you, I don't know. But what I do know is that you'll regret it for the rest of your life if you don't. Having good people in your circle who know when to push when you need it the most and back those decisions is so critical. And so much of all of that effort, the momentum behind it, has been driven by good people. And you just don't know when you're going to need those folks. I hadn't talked to Billy in 4 years. I just heard through the grapevine that he had already gone through the process. And he was another dude that didn't make it through the academy. He left on his own accord. Not what I was expecting. And I got put on and taken off 3 deployments. And true to their word, don't buy a house, don't unpack your shit, except I wasn't quite going to the fight. So I finish all of my air traffic control training. I stay with my buddies. I stay on my buddy's couch for like 2 months, waiting to get assigned to a unit and head over to Afghanistan. And eventually that would happen. Now, remember, I got the boot from the Air Force Academy for violating the honor code. And I can't say that between then and the story I'm about to tell you, my integrity wasn't really tested in that way since. We get sent to an outpost, Fob Edinburgh, in the Sangin province, southwest Afghanistan. When that campaign kicked off at the end of my tour, it turned out to be the most kinetic American engagement since Vietnam. The stakes were real high. And we were running UAV operations. We were the eyes in the sky for troops on the ground, providing intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. And regardless of your views on the war, the brass tacks of it all is, when you're over there, boots on the ground, my mission is to take the 13 Marines and the 17 civilians supporting our operations on that forward operating base to make sure they get home. Now, our site lead, one of our civilians, is like our subject matter expert on all things UAVs. And he gets orders to come home early as this campaign is about to kick off. So my captain, I'm a lowly first lieutenant at the time, tells me to go to the flight brief and make sure that he's not on the manifest. This is a big no-no. Gives me all the jazz about mission capability and we need him and this, that, and the other, but orders are orders. And I had to stand there, look at my Marines, our mission, and take a deep, hard look inside and say, hey, sir, this might be the end of my career. I cannot follow that order. The threats start to snowball. Your career is at stake. You're violating this, chain of command that. And after it all shook out, all the while, we're still running these missions 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, 2 shifts, 13 Marines. Making it happen. They send his ass home. They're like, congratulations, Lieutenant. Now you're in charge. Do the hard thing. I would return from Afghanistan, and while I was over there, I was studying for a couple of exams, some certifications, and the one commanding officer I had, life-changing conversations, right? The reason I'm standing in front of you right here, right now, today, is because of Colonel Barranco. He saw what I was up to. He took an interest in what I was doing. And he asked me about this gym thing. I said, sir, after the Marines, whenever that is, at that point, I was just like, I'm gonna do this thing till it's not fun anymore. I want to open a gym. And he asked 26-year-old Mycal, he says, well, how long do you think you have to do that? I don't know, I probably got another 10 years. He's like, I've seen Marines like you before who have aspirations to do greater things beyond the uniform. And I'm telling you right now, if you stay in for another tour, that dream does not come true. You need to leave the Marines. Now, counter to popular opinion, my other 3 COs had another argument. What do you know about starting a business? What do you know about doing the gym? What do you know about hiring and blah, blah, blah? You need to stay in. And I even had some of my Marines, those in my charge, ask me, hey, sir, why do all the good ones get out? Never mind all that shit up top. That was the one. But I had to hang on to the last sentence of that conversation. The good colonel said, you will have more impact outside this uniform and for this uniform out there than you will if you stay a part of the big green machine. And I'll be damned if he wasn't right. So remember what I said about lather, rinse, repeat. Keep your promises, honor your commitment, do the hard thing, and make yourself proud. Up to this point, you're watching this play out in real time. And I didn't even have this construct yet. But this is the pattern. This is the playbook right here. That's as simple as it gets. I leave the Marines February of 2012. Moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. Get a job, training here in town. 6 months go by. I get into Arizona State, grad school, master's degree in exercise and wellness. I'm in my first semester. One of my clients, been with me for not even 90 days yet, asked me, you ever thought about opening your own place? I was like, oh yeah, for sure. It's totally in the plan. But I got to finish this degree first. She's like, well, how much money do you think that would cost? And I gave her a number. And she said, again, remember, I had people in the Marines. What do you know about business? Not a damn thing. I pulled that number out of my ass. But she believed in me so much. She invested in me. But before I took the check, I had a check-in with another client mentor of mine. It's 5 a.m. on a Tuesday. I'll never forget this. I come to the session, mind heavy. You know, usually I'm the guy that's like, hey, I don't know where you are right now, but I need you right here, right now, next set. Let's go. He's like, dude, what's going on with you? I was like, man, I'm in school. I didn't want to do this thing for like another 2 years. I'm not ready. But here's the situation. And I'm so thankful for this client. I've told the story before. He's like, stop saying my name, so I won't. I'm so thankful for him because after I explained to him what my situation was, because loyalty, right? I'm starting to create these relationships. I care about my people. He says to me, Mycal, when is the last time somebody offered to help you make your dream come true? I said, never. He said, when do you think it's going to happen again? You know what's awesome about being a human being? I said, man, I'm so lost right now, I don't have a clue. He's like, it's our ability to figure it the fuck out. Direct quote. I didn't massage that at all. Sure, you're in school. That's important. But you also have this opportunity that probably won't happen again. And if it does, it'll be a while. the one that's least important will fall off on its own. It won't take any of your effort whatsoever. So we entered into that agreement. I took the money. I opened the gym. 4 years later, April 2013, opened the doors of CrossFit PHX. 4 years later, we were rated the #1 CrossFit gym in America. And I finished that master's degree. Keep your promises. Honor your commitments. Do the hard thing. Make yourself proud. Trust this. It makes the hard decisions still hard, just a little bit easier. Since then, we've launched our remote coaching platform, and I took on that podcast. I wrote that book and took a handful of our members who needed to know each other for a lot of different reasons. The attorney needed the accountant needed the general contractor needed the dentist. And I put them all in a room. I said, you all need to know each other for a lot of different reasons. I don't know where this goes from here. But just like the Marines, some pretty cool shit was started in a bar. And that conversation was so powerful, they called on me to keep that conversation going. And that turned into our Leaders Forum. And through that conversation, the narrative of the podcast and that book, I became infatuated with leadership. And how does one become happy, fulfilled, and successful simultaneously? That's the code you guys are all in here trying to crack for your people. How do we elevate you financially so that you can do whatever you want? Invest in some dumb Marine's dream. Get that capital working for you. Embrace that compounding interest. Make those hard decisions in servitude of those promises and those commitments. And then I figured out that all these things, this shotgun blast of awesome, that were competing for my energy, by feeding any one of them, I was starving the other three. And when I was finally able to get 30,000 feet above it all, I was like, oh my God. That's what we're doing. That's the mission that we serve. If you look at the hierarchy of our states of being, the foundation is that physical practice. It improves your emotional state, which gives you mental clarity and allows you to show up in the world as the best version of yourself. And through the narrative and my journey and living into these principles, we're now able to help our clients on their path to progress always. And a lot of that, for a lot of them, is partnerships with individuals like yourselves. And what we've been able to do with Renaissance has been monumental for our clients. Because I still know jack shit about money. But that's why I have Steve. And I really appreciate you guys being here today, because it's because of folks like you and the education you've given me and the faith in my financial path to progress always, that I'm able to stand here before you. And I appreciate that opportunity. So thank you very much. Please, feel free. Yes. Questions?
How do they rate the CrossFit gym to be number one? What did you guys do to earn that title?
Google reviews.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. What?
Like the number of them, or like how many stars, or what?
I would assume the stars have something to do with it. But your opinion of us is what gave us that rating. Yeah, it was published in a 2017 issue of Men's Journal.
What's next?
Oh, man, good question. The pandemic kind of, again, I'm not a tech guy, and through the great migration that occurred over the last 2 years, everybody kind of becoming transient, and the exodus from California, and people just trying out all these new markets and working remote and all that kind of good stuff. We had a lot of people that otherwise would have never set foot in our gym come through our gym, and wherever they would end up settling, feedback that we would get was, how do we get this next level experience wherever we are? And that led to our remote coaching platform, The Path to Progress Always. So now we're able to touch and impact clients and leaders as far as Hawaii and Germany and everywhere in between. So that's the evolution of Next Level. Yeah. What else?
How's your mom doing? Where's she at?
Oh, my mom just moved to Vegas. She's doing awesome. Yeah. She's doing great. Thank you. Yeah. I talk about my dad a lot because he's gone. But my mom, she's the rock. She went 4 for 4 on Eagle Scouts. I don't know if you guys know. I mean, that 4%, that's a percent for each of us. My big brother just retired from the Marine Corps after 20 years of honorable active service. I got a brother who won the national championship at Alabama, is now fighting in the UFC. And my baby brother can build car engines from memory. So she did her job. Yeah. What else? There's business cards on all of your tables. And if you're interested in this conversation, before you leave, now you can break out your tech. I'm telling you to. It's okay. All right. Pull out your phones. Text me your name and email address. We'll connect and we'll have a conversation as to how to put that game plan into effect. Okay? Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.